A storm rips through the Egyptian coast. Sand and rain claw at the cliffs above the Red Sea, and the earth gives something up, something buried since the time of the pyramids. It's 2013. A team of archaeologists is caught in that storm, sheltering in a cave. They're not looking for treasure. They're looking for scraps of old rope. But the wind tears loose a slab of limestone, and underneath it, papyrus. Not fragments, rolls. The oldest written documents ever found in Egypt. Older than anything from the pyramids themselves. They are about to read the diary of a man who helped build the Great Pyramid. And what he wrote would rewrite everything historians thought they knew. For thousands of years, one question haunted every scholar who stood before the Great Pyramid. 2.3 million blocks, some weighing as much as a school bus, stacked with a precision lasers can barely beat today. No wheel, no iron tools, no cranes. Historians had theories, ramps, levers, tens of thousands of men dragging stone across the desert. But there was a hole in every theory, a 400-mile hole. Because the best limestone, the pale, gleaming casing stone that once made the pyramid shine like a jewel, didn't come from Giza. It came from a quarry across the Red Sea. How do you move a 100,000-ton mountain of rock across open water 4,000 years before the compass existed? Egypt never told anyone, until that storm. The papyrus belonged to a man named Merer, a mid-level official, not a pharaoh, not a priest, a foreman. And foremen write down the boring stuff, shifts, shipments, deadlines. Merer's diary is the oldest logbook in human history, and it reads like a man complaining about work. He records his crew hauling limestone, not by cart, not by sledge across sand, by boat, down a canal system built specifically to feed the pyramid. A canal that led straight to the base of Giza itself. For centuries, people assumed this canal was a myth, a folk story, a pharaoh's boast. Merer proved it was real. He wrote the coordinates of his own commute, and somewhere in his pages, he mentions a harbor, a port city built purely to receive stone from across the sea. Historians didn't know it existed. They didn't know where to look, but Merer did. Follow his diary far enough, and it leads to a stretch of coastline called Wadi al-Jarf. Nothing but empty desert today. But underneath the sand, archaeologists found something no one expected from the Bronze Age. The oldest known harbor structures on Earth, L-shaped stone jetties built to break the force of the sea, storage galleries carved into the rock, dozens of them, sealed like vaults. And boat parts, not one boat, dozens. Deliberately taken apart plank by plank and stored for reuse. These weren't fishing boats. They were cargo ships, built to survive the crossing to the Sinai, where copper and turquoise mines fed Egypt's growing hunger for the tools it needed to cut stone. The pyramid wasn't just built with rope and sweat. It was the output of a logistics network, quarries, canals, ships, and warehouses, stretching across an empire. But even this harbor leaves a question hanging. If they could move stone by water that easily, why does the Great Pyramid sit inland? Why does its foundation follow the curve of a canal that shouldn't have reached that far? Here's where it gets stranger. In 2022, ground-penetrating radar picked something up beneath the Giza Plateau itself. A branch of the Nile, long since dried, buried under millennia of silt, once curled almost to the pyramid's front door. Egypt didn't just move stone to the desert, they moved the water to the stone. They engineered a seasonal harbor basin, timed to the Nile's flood cycle, so that for a few precious weeks each year, boats could sail almost to the base of the Great Pyramid itself. Every summer, the Nile would rise, the canal would fill, and for that narrow window, Egypt's entire construction machine would race the clock, floating stone in, unloading it, hauling it the final stretch by ramp, before the water receded and cut them off for another year. That's not brute force. That's a civilization scheduling one of the largest construction projects in history around a river's mood. And it means the how was never really the mystery. The mystery was how long they'd hidden it. Merer's diary doesn't read like propaganda. It reads like exhaustion, entries about missing deadlines, about being reassigned mid-shipment, about grain rations and short supplies, and men worked to the edge of what their bodies could survive. These weren't slaves in chains, but they weren't free men choosing a hobby either. They were conscripted labor, fed, housed, and worked in brutal cycles, expected to hit quotas an empire's ambition had set for them. Some of them are buried just outside the pyramid's shadow in a workers' cemetery discovered in the 1990s. Their bones tell their own quiet story. Spines curved from decades of hauling stone, bodies broken young. Merer never knew his diary would survive. He wasn't writing for history. He was writing because his job required a record, and that accident, a bureaucrat doing his paperwork, is the only reason we now understand how one of the 7 wonders of the world was actually built. So why did Egypt keep it secret for 45 centuries? It didn't, not on purpose. The canal silted over. The harbor was abandoned once the pyramid was finished. Sealed up, boats disassembled, tools left behind like a job site walked away from at the end of a shift. Nobody hid this story. The desert did. Sand doesn't forget, it just waits. It waited through the fall of the Old Kingdom, through Rome, through Islam's golden age, through Napoleon's soldiers shooting at the Sphinx's face. It waited for one storm in 2013 to loosen one slab of limestone above one man's forgotten logbook. The Great Pyramid isn't just a monument to a pharaoh. It's a monument to logistics, to rivers rerouted, harbors built and buried, and thousands of nameless men who show up in history only because one tired foreman wrote down his shift. We didn't need new technology to solve this mystery. We needed a diary the desert almost kept forever.